Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships, and we have a very special ship to take a look at. The new Tier 10 Libertad. I'm playing the Comodoro because this includes the special legendary commander as well. This is possibly the new best secondary battleship in the entire game. This ship is absolutely insane. This is the Pan-American Tier 10. So if we've seen Atlantico giving us these massive caliber secondaries, we know how good that is at Tier 8. What happens if you make them even better and then put them at Tier 10? That's what we're going to take a look at today. We do have a lot to go over though, and I might get some stuff wrong, so I'll try and update the pinned comment down below if I do. This is a bit of a rushed launch. Yeah, not a huge fan of the way Wargaming has done this. There are a ton of buffs that are coming to this ship, so what you're about to see is actually the weaker version of this ship. Yeah. Also, they removed the Comodoro from our accounts to test, and that also removed the Legendary Commander, because I'm not able to slot the Legendary Commander on a rented Libertad. So I'm glad I got a few games in with this combo, as this commander does add a lot. So let's get into it. This ship has the third best secondary DPM, the hitting DPM at 10 kilometers. It's like less than 1,000 DPM behind Ohio. And what's really important here is that we have 234 millimeter secondaries. And those pen an insane amount, 59 millimeters of pen. So any battleship you're fighting with these secondaries, you're basically guaranteed to full pen them on their deck armor, as well as the superstructure, as well as their bow. There's only a few ships in the game that can actually shatter these secondaries. They have massive alpha damage and fire chance as well. We also, on this ship, are getting 127 millimeter secondaries. Those don't have much pen, but mainly are there to light fires. Our secondary accuracy is the same of Ohio and Schlieffen, so we're going to get fairly consistent damage out of these secondaries. We also get 12.5 kilometers of range with this full build, so even more range than the Ohio gets here. It's very, very powerful when it comes to the secondaries. The main guns, on the other hand, are a bit of a weak point, although I think I get very lucky in this video. You're going to see quite a few Citadel hits, including this one on Ohio earlier this match. I think that's just pure RNG. This ship has some pretty bad dispersion. It's standard battleship dispersion, but with pretty poor Sigma, I would say. 1.7 Sigma on standard battleship dispersion is not very good. These are also 419 millimeter guns. You do get 12 of them, which is pretty cool. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about these combat instructions. Yes, you are seeing 15 kilometers of secondary range. That's correct. We're getting to it. There's so much to go over here, man. But these main guns do have a few weaknesses, I would say, on top of their dispersion. The alpha damage is quite low, 11,700 for 419 millimeter guns. Pretty low. The pen isn't too bad, though, fortunately, but there's no improved pen angles or fuse times here. The HE shells do pretty decent damage at 6,100, but they only have a 34% fire chance, so maybe not the best. Although combined with the secondaries lighting fires, could be a decent option to run a full HE spamming build on this ship. Alright, let's get to the special gimmicks on this ship. These combat instructions that we're seeing right now. You get 20% range. 15 kilometers with that full build. You get 20% better reload. So you're getting the reload of these 234 mil secondaries down to 6 seconds. If you include the special commander as well, which I gotta talk about yet, you're around 5 or even less than 5 seconds. Even more with Adrenaline Rush perhaps. The damage is also buffed by 30% while these combat instructions are active. So the 234 mil secondaries now have 5k alpha damage. Insane. Alright, we've procced now one of these special commander's abilities. And that is going to give us 20% instantly on our combat instructions after we use it. We need to use our combat instructions twice in order for that to happen. But that's a massive bonus, because this ship also farms up these combat instructions rather quickly, but an instant 20% after using it is pretty powerful. And you get that after the second activation. Speaking of activating these combat instructions, each main battery hit is giving you 6.5% towards these combat instructions. So in 15, 16 hits or so, you're getting 100%. And that's going to be, what, 2 to 4 salvos or so. But wait, there's more. I feel like I'm selling like cheap goods on an infomercial late at night or something. There's so much here. You get also progression based on your potential damage. So we're getting small progress ticks anytime someone shoots at us. And that's going to be 0.15% per 1,000 potential damage. That results in 666,666 potential damage required to get 100% activation. And so that's going to take you a while. But combined with the main battery hits, look at how I'm just reloading these combat instructions and almost instantly getting back to them within 2 salvos, I would say. Our secondary battery reload here unfortunately does not show the larger caliber. I was really curious because this commander also gives us reload on our secondary battery anytime we get 175 secondary hits and main gun hits. So just 175 secondary ribbons plus main gun ribbons. There it is. What does that give us? That's going to give us 5% main gun reload, 10% torp reload, and 22.5% secondary battery reload. Kind of crazy. In fact, here, this is where this ship is getting buffed. I'm pretty sure I'm only playing with 15% on this commander buff. So I just got a 15% reload. You will get a 22.5% secondary battery reload once this releases. Pretty massive change here. This is why I'm not a huge fan of this release, because it feels like Wargaming has rushed it out. I really don't like it when we have these new ships that come into the game that get balance changes that don't get tested before release. I don't like it because it seems like the ship, it doesn't matter if it's unbalanced or not, and overtuned or undertuned. It feels like they're not really taking into account the game balance all that much, and they'd rather just see the new flashy ship get into the game so that they can get their early access cash. Speaking of that, it is going to be early access, so consecutive bundles. This is going to be for doubloons at the end of that. You got to do loot boxes for the tier 9. The tier 8 will be on the battle pass. So it's early access. That's how it goes, I guess. The decay, I should say, on these combat instructions is 50 seconds before it starts to decay. So you got a little bit of time to get some potential damage, and each little bit of potential damage does extend that and resets that decay counter. So it should be very easy to activate these combat instructions. But there's even more buffs. But wait, there's more yet again. Rudder shift here. I have a 17.6 second rudder shift with a 1,020 meter turning radius. It's getting buffed to 13.6 seconds and a 910 meter turning radius. That's pretty massive. Oh wait, there's more. Acceleration. I'm using just a standard battleship acceleration in these games. It's getting Vermont acceleration as well. So it's just massively more maneuverable now too in the update. Also, turret traverse. Old turret traverse that I'm using here, 36 seconds. It's gonna go to 30 seconds. It's also getting massive armor buffs to the bow of this citadel. This is one of the weak points of the ship that I was very happy about. This ship is very vulnerable to 32mm overmatch in the bow because the bow citadel plating is flat and only 102 or 51mm. That's what I'm playing with here. It forces me to angle in specific ways. It was a weak point on this ship that is very, very tanky overall. But nope, it's going up to 305mm, which is probably still vulnerable, but not nearly as much. So pretty massive changes there to our ship. And that's really why I'm not happy with this launch. If Wargaming's watching this would be my feedback. Just test these ships for longer, all right? Just put the changes in that you're going to do for the final release so that we can actually see if that's balanced before we just ship it into the game. Selfishly, as a CC, I also would like to see this so that I don't have to constantly explain all these changes and then hypothesize about how much better or worse the ship is going to be after the changes go through. I want to give accurate information to the community, and it just makes things more complicated and difficult. At least in this case, we're seeing an absolutely ridiculously powerful ship get buffed, so my comments are pretty easy. It's already very good, and it's going to get better. But overall, I do think that things should be tested a little bit more thoroughly before they're just rushed into the game. And why weren't we given the Comodoro still to test. Fortunately, I got some games in before, but if I had waited even a couple hours longer before playing this ship to get some footage for this video, it would have been gone, and I couldn't have even tested this special commander. So yeah, not a fan of this launch, I gotta say. But the ship itself is extremely powerful. This is a very, very strong ship. The armor, which we'll look at in a little bit towards the end of the video, is 51 millimeters of plating all over it. The bow and stern are 32, but everything else you see outside of the superstructure is 51. That's very difficult to get through. You're going to need some very high caliber, high pen HE to actually get through to this ship. And there's some ships that can do that and are going to be very strong against this ship. But any smaller or more standard 203 millimeter, 152 millimeter guns, they're just going to shatter. The other thing is the superstructure is quite small. Another good salvo there. Getting quite lucky, like I said. I think the dispersion is going to troll you for the most part with this ship. But it's 12 guns. Even with the bad dispersion, we can get some decent salvos here and there. 250k into this game. Of course, arms race. We do have to have that as a disclaimer. But very good match. Cerberus beating us. Well done. And look at the secondary damage. Over 100k raw damage there. And we didn't even get much out of our fires, which we should. 64k to this poor Ohio, man. I remember playing Ohio about a month ago, or a little less than a month ago, and I ran into one of these things, and I thought, wow, how did I die so quickly? Now I know. Yeah, you're just paper when you're playing Ohio compared to this ship. It's kind of insane. And I was giving so much broadside to that Ohio. I was greeting so hard to get secondaries on that Republic, just to talk about that. And while this ship does have an above water citadel, it's even more angled than Kremlin. So that's going to mean it's very difficult to citadel this ship at everything except close ranges, where the ship is at its most dangerous. It does take quite a bit of damage when you give broadside, though, even still, just because it does have this buffed armor to deal with HE. It's going to arm a lot of AP shells. So you're going to see me take a ton of damage to this enemy Petro in their spawn. I'm pushing. I'm just full sending, of course. I do want to test this ship out, and these last two games here were earlier. The first game I showed you was the last game I ended up playing. I played a lot more passive, as you can tell, but early on I just like to full send in ships just to see what they're capable of. So here we're full sending into a Kremlin, into a Napoli, Petro Crossfire. Yeah, it's maybe not the best idea, but we're going to do a decent amount of work here. And honestly, 15k there is not too bad damage. I wasn't really expecting the citadels into a Kremlin. The guns did surprise me. I do think they should be worse. This is kind of the opposite of the Wisconsin initial situation where I got trolled a bit early on with the guns, and I knew they should be better, and yet I had this experience of them not being so good. Here's the opposite. I have to tell you guys, I would not expect the guns to perform as well as they did in this video. I think I'm just getting lucky with it, especially with the power level of the secondaries. It feels like that's where most of this power lies. So giving broadside to a Petro, yeah, that's 8.8k from just his front guns. That's a little bit rough, although he's giving me broadside, so we'll do a little bit of damage here. We do have our buff, or our combat instructions, available to us. There's a citadel, see? Not too bad. Poor gunboat DDs against this thing, especially if it has its accuracy farmed up on manual secondaries. Of course, that takes a little while, but you have to get outside of 15 kilometers if you truly want to be safe from these secondaries. If you're like this Alvaro and you're within 12.5, I'm farming up my, not my combat instructions, I'm farming up my accuracy with my manual secondaries, and it still retains the range now if I just click my combat instructions. Now here I make a bad decision. It's only a bad decision in hindsight, but I'm assuming the Kremlin is pushing around this corner, and I don't want to give broadside to a Kremlin at like 6 kilometers. So I decide to angle to him where I think he's going to be coming from, and push into this enemy team. I do think I probably got away, or could have gotten away from this situation if I had turned away. If I had known the Kremlin was just going to sit behind that island. Hard to know, but that's the power of staying concealed, right? That's the power of stealth, right? I don't know where he is, so I'm forced to make decisions based on where I think he's going. And that can lead to, well, yeah, just dying here. Nearly 2 million potential damage in this game, so very tanky still. We died quickly, but We took a lot of incoming fire here, I gotta say. So, relatively tanky ship, but yeah, you're gonna get a lot of full pens against broadsides, and or you're going to take a lot of full pens when you're broadside. I mean, another Citadel, though, into that Petro. I never Citadel Petros, man, and we just get that there. All right, on to the last game for you today. I gotta talk about these secondary firing angles here for a minute. Forwards, you get 100% of your secondary damage at 28 degrees. And backwards, it's 23 degrees. So when you're kiting, like I was in the first game, you only have to expose 23 degrees, which is perfectly angled, to get all that DPM firing. That's crazy. So on top of being almost the best secondary DPM, the best pen, the best range with this buff, and honestly, with this combat instructions, you probably do have the best DPM even over a Schlieffen. It's kind of nuts. You don't even need to take IFHE to be full penning a lot of these battleships as well, so you just retain the fire chance. It's kind of crazy. Your main battery is a little worse, 35 degrees forward and 33 degrees backwards. There's a triple Citadel, by the way. That shouldn't be happening, I don't think, and we're going to see that in a little bit on the Henry, but we got pretty lucky. And then I just popped my combat instructions just because. I was hoping the Yamato would stay spotted, actually, but yeah, just casually reaching out to his spawn. It's crazy, man. It's actually kind of crazy what this ship has available to it, and it's getting buffed. And here's a situation where I think the buff would have helped me quite a bit. Shorter turning radius, better rudder shift, and better acceleration. Probably means I only take one there, or maybe even slip between those two torps. So, pretty unfortunate there. Front guns only, dispersion looks terrible, but hey, maybe we can cheek this Yamato. And, yep. Like, dude, it should not happen. Also, the heal here is slightly improved. A standard heal heals 14%. This gets 16.8% healing back, so slightly better than the standard heal. And it has a 60-second cooldown, not 80 seconds like we would see on a standard battleship. No 40 seconds, though, like the Ohio. So I would say our tankiness is similar to maybe a little bit worse than Ohio, but we have better armor, smaller superstructure, and way more firepower. Our concealment's also like really, really good. It's like 13 kilometers. I'll talk about that more with the build here after this game. But this damage control is actually the American damage control at 20 seconds. So if you take the build, like I have here, you can actually extend that to 30 seconds of immunity time. Kind of insane. And yes, that was just 4 overpens on that Henry. Although we do get a Citadel there, which feels pretty good. Low damage, of course, with these Citadels, but hey, we still managed to get it. Those turret angles, a little bit rough here, unfortunately for us, but taking a lot of damage from this Yamato as well. So we are going to go down here, but we managed to dish out quite a bit of punishment in the meantime here. It's powerful, man. This thing is very, very strong. I got to take a look at all the other new stuff this update as well. There's so much coming. Plenty of ships. The rest of the ships in this line, we've got the Seva, which seems like a Smolensk again. Kind of insane Victoria, which is like a box of gimmicks. I don't know what it's about, but I got to see yet. But 173 here into this last game. The AA is probably not all that good. I didn't really get to test it, fortunately. Yeah, a 60k damage with our secondaries in this one. Not too bad. And just to say it again, the Comodoro here is the exact same as the Libertad, and it only functioned to slot the special commander on. So otherwise, it's just this standard commander. Let's take a look at this armor, right? 32 mil bow, not great, right? Like, there's no icebreaker here. This is what I liked about this ship. It at least is a little bit vulnerable at close range. 51 mil plating, like, look at all this. There's some shot trap potential here, though, when you're kiting. So even though your turret angles or your secondary angles are insane while kiting, there's some shot trap opportunities here. Didn't mention it yet, but you do get 3 turrets that are pointing forward, right? The front 2 here, as well as this one middle one here, and then 3 facing backwards. So even though you don't have any 360-degree turrets, you're almost always, no matter how you're maneuvering, able to keep half your DPM online while the others turn around. And again, the turret traverse is getting buffed, so you're getting a 30-second turret traverse, which is really fast. Poor Yamato, man. Well, hey, this ship is being released in 2024. I suppose it makes sense. These secondaries, though, man, absolutely crazy. The 127 is really only for lighting fire, 6% fire chance here. But the large caliber ones, man, 234. The damage, the fire chance, the pen, it's a lot. With this build, though, you do get the reload down. Without it, I think they're like 11-second reload base, so they take forever to fire. But I am running the full secondary meme thing. Very, very powerful. With the conceal build here, you see 13 kilometers. So we're not quite like Schlieffen with like 12.6 detect and 12.5 range on our secondaries, but it's honestly close enough. We're reasonably quick as well. And again, the turning circle, rudder shift time, all getting buffed. Too much is getting buffed, man. Like, not even to say that the ship would be overpowered with that, but just that we're getting these buffs as it's getting released. Like, if the ship's in testing, shouldn't we be testing these things? It doesn't make sense to me. But I'll try not to let it get to me too much, even though it is bugging me. Our HP here, not the best, but not too bad either. Much more than a Schlieffen. Much tankier than a Schlieffen. The secondaries are arguably better than Schlieffen, especially with these insane combat instructions. And the special commander, it's probably just the best secondary battleship in the game now, which is crazy because Schlieffen is so ridiculously powerful with those secondaries. This is the build that I was running here. I do want fire prevention. I think it helps us stay alive. But I was really I need to figure out how to get this skill involved because our slightly smaller HP pool, combined with just generally wanting to tank a lot of damage for our combat instructions, means getting back to our heal faster. It already has a 60-second cooldown. If we can get that down to 50 seconds, 45 seconds, I mean, that all just helps so much. And it gives us another heal. When you're YOLOing, like I kind of was in these games, you're not going to use all your heals. But if you play a little smarter, you certainly can. Maybe that says go for this upgrade. I don't know. But it's hard to do because you want Adrenaline Rush. Because again, those large caliber secondaries, you can get a sub 5-second reload on them with a bit of AR, the special commander, and these combat instructions. It's crazy. You're not going to give up secondaries. I don't really want to give up conceal. I certainly would in ranked though. If we're playing this in ranked, definitely giving up conceal. I did notice some of my secondaries died, so maybe I want preventative maintenance. Although keep in mind, I'm not even running the secondary survivability here. So, I mean, 30 seconds immunity time is pretty cool though. 28, I guess, but close enough. I didn't find my main guns dying too much, but you know, I'll have to test that some more. Again, this is all very early first impressions. But yeah, it's very strong. Again, let's take a look at the armor here and show you this citadel, right? It's above water, this citadel, which is really cool. I really, really like that. I think ships should be vulnerable when they give broadside, but it's pretty well armored. 406 is pretty good at tier 10. It's not the best, but look at the angle on it, man. It's so steep, right? So anytime you're firing at range and your shells come in like this, or even steeper angles, yeah, you're not getting through that. Angled 406 like that, no way. So at closer ranges, then you might be able to citadel it. But at really close range, there was possibility to just cheek this thing for free, which is really cool. I thought that was a really interesting idea, right? Even though it's 32, if you don't overmatch 32 and they're giving you broadside like this, just shoot here anyway. It's not angled enough to auto bounce, right? So then you just go through 32, which is really easy, and then 102, which is also pretty easy. So yeah, bow and stern are getting buffed to 305 is the idea here. And here's the special commander. Finally get around to showing him off. And we do get a few upgraded skills. Brisk to 12.5%. Not too bad. I think cruisers and DDs both get survivability expert increases. So this is a pretty good commander for putting on your destroyers or your cruisers as well. And certainly for battleships. Interesting, though, that this relentless firing is only main battery and secondary battery. Seems like an oversight to not include torps, especially if it's going to increase the torpedo reload or decrease it, like make it better. Not sure why. Seems like an oversight to me. Maybe I'm probably nitpicking at this point. I'm sorry. But it all adds up to this general feeling of being too rushed, too untested, and just get it into the game so we can capitalize on the early access. It is how it feels to me. And maybe that's the case because the Cassard and the new French DD line still isn't out of early access. So instead of having a month gap between the previous early access ending and the next one starting, that's typically how it was, wasn't it? 1 to 2 months, right? We had a few per year, but now are we going to 6 new lines per year, right? 1 every 2 months? That seems a little rushed, doesn't it? I don't know. Maybe I'm over reading into this, but Yeah, it feels a little bad. It feels a little weird. But that's it. I think that's going to be the Libertad. I've got to take a look at all the other new stuff. There's so much to do this week, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. This ship is insane. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I hope I covered it all. If not, check the pinned comment. I've got a lot to do. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.